Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum students. We are continuing with the tumors of the ovaries. Sorry for the delay because there was some problem locating the area where I'm supposed to take my lecture. So in the last lecture, we did WHO classification of the tumors of the ovaries. And then I did ovarian, started with ovarian tumors, and I've already done surface epithelial tumors of the ovary with you. So now we are going to do mucinous tumors of the ovaries. As I've told you, surface epithelial tumors are serous, mucinous, endometrioid, Brenner cell tumor, and clear cell tumor. So we have only done serous tumors of the surface epithelial type. Next in surface epithelial types are mucinous tumors of the ovaries. The mucinous tumors of the ovaries, they account for 20 to 25% of all ovarian neoplasms which occur in adult life. The pathogenesis of these tumors are mutation of KRAS proto-oncogenes, which is a consistent genetic alteration seen in mucinous tumors of the ovary. KRAS mutations are also seen in all tumors in benign, borderline, and malignant tumors. So KRAS mutations can be seen in benign, borderline, and malignant tumors of the surface epithelium, which are mucinous in variety. Okay? Morphologically, mucinous tumor differ from serous tumor. That surface of the ovary is not going to be invaded by these tumors, and 5% of these tumors are only bilateral. On the gross appearance, the mucinous tumors also produce large cystic area masses, which can weigh up to 25 kilogram in size. These masses are multilocular, filled with sticky gelatinous fluid. So as I've told you, there are three varieties of serous tumors. Similarly, there are three varieties of mucinous tumor. They are benign, borderline, and malignant. So in case of benign tumors, the benign tumors are simple, are cysts containing unilocular cysts containing sticky fluid. But the borderline tumors can be multilocular cysts containing sticky fluid, and the malignant have more solid areas as compared to cystic areas. And when you cut these cystic areas, mucinous fluid will come out. So this is the mucinous cyst adenoma gross. You can see this is a cyst on its own, it's not cut, but this is only when you cut it, only unilocular cyst will be present, and there is going to be gelatinous fluid present in this. This is mucinous cyst. Borderline tumor, you can see these mucinous blue areas present within the multilocular cyst. Borderline tumor, as I've told you, these tumors have multi-layering of epithelium, but they do not invade the underlying stroma of the ovary. This is mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma. You can see these small cysts. They are all lined by mucinous epithelium and they contain mucin. And this is a one larger cyst which appears to be unilocular. But from here you can see the cyst has become multilocular. And you can see small cystic areas here as well. And all of them contain mucinous material. So these are the three gross appearance of mucinous cyst adenoma. Mucinous cyst borderline tumor, and mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma. Okay, so all of these three slides are your OSPE slide. As I've told you, I'm telling you what are OSPE slides in between your lectures. So any one of these can be given into your OSPE. So you have to give 2 points of identification with each slide, as I've already told you. Okay, so morphologically benign, mucinous tumors are lined by tall columnar epithelium with apical mucin and which lack cilia. So this is the appearance of a benign mucinous cyst adenoma. You can see single layer of columnar mucus secreting cells, and this is ovarian stroma which appears very benign. And these cells are also appearing benign. They are regular and they are lining a cystic cavity. Single layer of mucin secreting columnar epithelial cell is the lining epithelium in case of benign mucinous cyst adenoma. The borderline tumors, they show multi-layering of the epithelium and papillary intraglandular growth patterns can be seen. In this slide, you can see the multi-layering of epithelium. It's not single as you've seen in the case of benign cyst adenoma of mucinous variety. They are multi-layering and the apical mucin is present in all of these cells. So benign have multi-layering and papilliform with intraglandular growth patterns. The mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma, they demonstrate confluent growth with invasion of the stroma. Multi-layering of epithelium is seen showing all features of malignancy, that is crowding up of epithelium with nuclear pleomorphism, and nuclear cytoplasmic ratio is altered and nuclei become hyperchromatic. Do you, okay, so I'll show you the slide of mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma. You can see papillae formation 9 by multi-layer of malignant looking epithelial cells. You can see these prominent nuclei are present with the nuclei, or multi-layering of epithelium is seen, and these cells are invading the underlying ovarian stroma. So this is mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma of the ovary. Okay, I hope it's clear. In the mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma tumors confined to the ovary, they have a 90 to 95% survival rate, and tumors which have spread beyond the ovary are usually fatal tumors. Okay, the prognosis is only good for those tumors which are confined to the ovary, but those who have gone beyond the ovary, the 5-year survival rate is very low. They become usually fatal. This is mucinous cyst adenoma. This is borderline mucinous tumor, and this is mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma of the ovary. These all three slides are OSPI slides as well. Okay, you have to see them. Pseudomyxoma peritonei. This can be your Viva question as well. Pseudomyxoma peritonei is a clinical condition which is marked by extensive mucinous ascites. Cystic epithelial implants can be seen on the peritoneal surfaces. Adhesions can occur and the ovaries can get involved as well. If there is extensive, it may result in intestinal obstruction and death. Originally, it was thought that pseudomyxoma peritonei arise from the mucinous carcinoma of the ovary, but the recent evidence suggests that it is due to extra ovarian neoplasms. Usually, it is coming from GIT or appendix, and the abdominal cavity is filled with mucin. Tumor implants can be seen on the peritoneal surface, and this is the gross appearance of pseudomyxoma peritonei. This is the microscopic. These are the pools of mucin which are present in between the peritoneal surfaces, and these are the malignant peritoneal implants which are present on the peritoneal surfaces. So one examiner can ask you what is pseudomyxoma peritonei. It is filling of the peritoneal cavity with tumor implants which are mucinous in origin, and a lot of mucin can also be present with the peritoneal cavity. It can arise from the ovarian tumor as well, but now it is saying that this arises mostly from the extra ovarian tumors, usually from the appendix or from other parts of the GIT, which are mucin secreting adenocarcinomas. Okay, so we have done with mucinous tumors of the ovary surface epithelial type, and next surface epithelial type is endometrioid ovarian tumors. Endometrioid ovarian tumors, I've told you, endometrioid carcinoma can also be present in the uterus, but endometrioid carcinoma can also rise in the ovary as well. Endometrioid ovarian tumors accounts for 10 to 15% of all ovarian tumors. They are benign. They are called endometrioid adenofibroma. Borderline endometrioid tumors also occur but are uncommon. And endometrioid carcinoma may result from endometriosis of the ovary, or it can arise from the borderline tumors as well. In the pathogenesis, it is the similar pathogenesis as for the endometrioid carcinoma of the uterus. 15 to 20% of endometrioid carcinoma coexist with endometriosis in the ovary, and alterations in PI3K AKT mutations can be seen. Mutation in mismatch repair DNA gene and beta-catenin and P53 genes are seen as well. Morphologically, endometrioid tumors present with solid and cystic areas of growth. 40% are bilateral. These are low-grade tumors, and they show glandular pattern. They resemble endometrial in origin, and 5-year survival rate is 75%. So morphologically, endometrioid tumors, they resemble those tumors which are also rising from the endometrial carcinoma. They can be solid tumor, they can be cystic tumors as well. They are low-grade tumor. That means that their survival rate is excellent. 5-year survival rate is 75%. They can form glandular pattern as well, or they can be present in sheets as well. So this is the photomicrograph for endometrioid carcinoma of the ovary. You can see the gland formation, but these glands are again lined by large neoplastic epithelial cells which are multi-layering. They have prominent nucleoli and vesicular nuclei. These cells are also invading the underlying stroma as well. So this is the endometrioid carcinoma of the ovary. I hope it is clear. Endometrioid ovarian tumors are also divided into benign, borderline, and malignant. Benign are also known as endometrioid adenofibroma. Borderline are quite rare, and carcinoma is the one which appears the same as of endometrioid carcinoma of the uterus. This is the photomicrograph showing glandular patterns in which you can see multi-layering of epithelium, and these cells, neoplastic cells, are also invading the underlying stroma, and these cells show prominent nucleoli with vesicular nuclei, and nucleocytoplasmic ratio is altered. This is a gland, a lumen, and lining epithelium, and these are solid areas which are present within the ovarian stroma. Next surface epithelial tumor is the clear cell tumors of the ovary. Benign, borderline, and malignant. Again, they are divided into benign, borderline, and malignant. Benign and borderline clear cell tumors are rare, and clear cell carcinoma is quite uncommon. Sometimes now it is to think that it is a form of endometrioid carcinoma which have a clearing of the cytoplasm. So clear cell carcinoma cells are composed of large epithelial cells. They have abundant clear cytoplasm resembling gestational endometrium. These are now thought to be variants of endometrioid carcinoma. They share same genetic alteration as of endometrioid carcinoma. Okay. So next is morphologically, the clear cells can be solid, they can be cystic, or in solid tumor cells are in sheets, and in cystic tumors, the cells lie in the cyst spaces. Clear cell carcinoma confined to the ovary has 95% survival rate. So benign and borderline clear cell tumors are quite rare. Malignant tumors are composed of large epithelial cells with abundant clear cytoplasm. They resemble sometimes gestational endometrium as well. These are now thought to be variants of endometrioid carcinoma. They share same genetic alteration as of endometrioid carcinoma, that is alteration in PI3K gene, TP53 gene, and also in DNA mismatch repair gene. Morphologically, the clear cell tumors can be solid or they can be cystic. In the solid tumors, the cysts are in the solid tumors, the cells are present in sheets, and in the cystic tumors, the tumor cells are lining the cystic spaces. The clear cells carcinoma, which is confined to the ovary, has an excellent prognosis of 95%. This is the microscopic picture of clear cell carcinoma of the ovary. You can see clear cytoplasm, the nuclei are pushed, some of them are in the center, some of them are pushed towards the periphery. So they are forming glandular pattern. This is the clear cell carcinoma of the ovary. This picture is also showing clear cell carcinoma of the ovary, and some secretions can be seen in the lumen. The cytoplasm show clearing in appearance. They are clear. They do not contain any stain. Here you can see, much appreciate the clear cytoplasm which is present. Then comes the transitional cell tumors of the ovary. Transitional cell tumors of the ovary, the older terminology for this tumor is Brenner tumor. The transitional cell tumor contains neoplastic epithelial cells which resemble urothelium. They are rare and they are usually benign. There are 10% ovarian tumors and are also called Brenner tumors. Morphologically, these tumors can be solid or these tumors can be cystic. They can be unilateral. They can vary in size from 1 centimeter to larger masses, which can vary from 20 to 30 centimeter in diameter. The fibrous stroma is like ovarian. In between, sharply demarcated areas of epithelial cells are present, resembling urothelium. In between, mucinous glands are present as well. I'll show you the picture. This is the gross appearance of the Brenner tumor of the ovary. You can see the cut section is yellowish in color. This transitional epithelium is present in between the ovarian stroma. So there are different groups of transitional epithelium which are present within the ovarian stroma. Most prevalent tumors are benign, but borderline and malignant tumors can also be seen. Tumors with benign Brenner nest mixed with malignant tumor cells are referred to as malignant Brenner, and tumors with greater than 50% of malignant transitional type of epithelium are called transitional cell carcinoma of the ovary. So Brenner tumor are those tumors which arise from the transitional type of epithelium. They are also called transitional cell tumors. The older terminology is Brenner tumor. They can be present from 1 centimeter in size to huge masses of 20 to 30 centimeters in size. And there is fibrostroma is present in between, and then there are epithelial nest of epithelial cells, as I've told you in this photomicrograph. This is the gross appearance and this is the microscopic appearance. The malignant Brenner tumor, which contain more than 50% of the transitional type epithelium, they're also known as transitional cell carcinoma of the ovary as well. Okay, so this is a better picture of Brenner tumor. You can see ovarian stroma and you can see groups of Brenner cells which are sharply demarcated by a fibrous tissue present around these tumor cells. This is the Brenner tumor of the ovary. This is benign Brenner tumor. Again, this is the higher magnification of the same slide, you can see the transitional type of epithelium, a fibrous tissues to capsule, not a capsule, but a demarcation around them. And then you can see fibrous tissue present in the ovary. So this is the transitional Brenner tumor of the ovary. So we have done surface epithelial tumors. So they are serous tumors of the ovary, mucinous tumors of the ovary, endometrioid carcinoma, clear cell carcinoma, and transitional tumor. These are the surface epithelial tumors of the ovary. So clinical course of these surface epithelial ovarian tumors, most common clinical manifestation of these tumors is lower abdominal pain and abdominal enlargement. The patient may present with lower abdominal pain or abdomen appears to be very enlarged and bloated. GI tract complaints can be seen, urinary frequency can be seen because of the pressure of the ovarian tumor on the bladder. Dysuria, pelvic pressure can be present. Malignant form can lead to progressive weakness, weight loss, and cachexia. Cachexia is because of the tumor necrosis factor which is secreted by the malignant tumors, as we have done this in third year. And the tumors which spread beyond the ovaries, ascites can be present. As I've told you, this can be a mucinous ascites or it can be a clear cell type of ascites. When you do the tapping of ascitic fluid, exfoliated tumor cells can be present in them, which can be diagnosed on the cytological examination of the ascitic fluid. Okay, tumor nodules can also be present within the peritoneum. These tumors, which are surface epithelium tumor, they metastasize to the regional lymph node of the pelvic area. They can also have distant metastasis into the liver, lungs, or gastrointestinal tract. The most women, they present with a high stage of the disease because we do not have any way to see whether these tumors are present in the earlier stage. So when the complaints become huge, like abdominal distension or ascites or pressure on the bladder, then these women consult for these symptoms, and on ultrasound examination, ovaries can show large masses, but the tissue diagnosis is very important to diagnose the category of type of ovarian tumor. These tumors, surface epithelium tumors, also secrete CA-125, which is a non-specific tumor marker which can be present in the serum. This is mostly done to see the extent of the disease after the tumor is removed for the prognosis of the patient. Okay, so this is the clinical course of the ovarian tumors with metastasis. Now, next category of ovarian tumors are germ cell tumor. Germ cell tumors of the ovaries arises from the germ cells of the ovaries. They can be mature or they can be embryonal or multipotential. Mature, as I've told you, can be benign teratoma or monodermal teratoma, which is known as struma ovariae, or malignant, which can be squamous carcinoma, carcinoid, or thyroid carcinoma. And that embryonal type or multipotential type can go into undifferentiated tumor, which is dysgerminoma, primitive type of tumor, which is embryonal carcinoma. Extra embryonic is yolk sac tumor. Somatic is mature teratoma, and trophoblastic is choriocarcinoma. So I'm going to go through one by one with all these tumors. The most important tumor from your examination point of view is germ cell tumor, which is teratoma, which is mature teratoma, benign, or it can be a monodermal teratoma. So these both mature and monodermal teratoma, which is also benign teratoma, are very important from your examination point of view, both your OSPE slides, with your MCQs and SCQs as well, and your Viva voice question as well. The germ cell tumors of the ovaries, they constitute up to 15 to 20% of all ovarian tumors. Most are benign cystic tumors or teratomas, and others show malignant behavior as well. Teratomas are divided into mature teratomas, which are benign, which arises from all the three germ layers, or it can arise from one single germ layer, which is called monodermal teratoma. And the best example is presence of thyroid tissue within the ovary, which is called struma ovariae. The other is immature teratoma, which is malignant. Monodermal teratoma means it derived from only one germ layer, okay? When it is mature teratoma, it is arising from all the three germ layers, which is ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Mature benign teratoma. Most benign teratomas are cystic teratomas. They are referred to as dermoid cyst as well, because they are lined by stratified squamous epithelium, and the wall of these cells contain adnexa, like hair follicles. Sebaceous glands and sweat glands can be present in their underlying tissue. These are found mostly in young females during active reproductive years of life. These can be associated with a paraneoplastic syndrome, inflammatory limbic encephalitis, which may remit on removal of these tumors because they are essentially benign. Benign teratomas do not metastasize. Benign teratomas can be present in unilateral conditions or bilateral cases as well. Only 10 to 15% of tumors can be bilateral. Mature benign teratoma on gross appearance, these are mostly unilocular cysts. And when you do the cut section, these cysts contain matted hair with sebaceous material in them, which is yellow and cheesy in appearance. The cut section also saw a thin walled cyst, which can be lined by gray, white wrinkle, appearing as epidermis because it is stratified squamous epithelium. Sometimes you can see a tooth structure hanging into the cyst cavity as well. And calcification is also present within the wall of the cyst, which can be because of the bony tissue present within the cyst wall. So on the gross appearance, these are cystic lesions which contain matted and cheesy hair material. And when you do the cut section, a tooth structure can be present, lined by gray wrinkled skin, and calcification or thick wall can be seen as well because of the presence of bone. Microscopically, these teratomas, the cyst wall is lined by stratified squamous epithelium, which is keratinized, and underlying tissue contains sebaceous glands, hair follicles. All skin type of adnexa can be present. There can be areas of calcification. Areas of cartilaginous tissue can also be present. Bone tissue can be present, or thyroid tissue can be present. When thyroid tissue is present, it is known as tumor viri. 1% of the dermoid tumors can undergo malignant transformation. Mostly these are benign mature teratomas, but 1% of these can undergo malignant transformation as well. Benign mature teratomas can transform into one type of carcinoma as well, because squamous cell carcinomas can arise in them because benign squamous epithelium is present in the lining of the dermoid cells. But when the thyroid tissue can be present, thyroid carcinoma can also develop in them, and melanoma sometimes can also develop in benign teratomas. So benign teratomas do not become immature, but they can change into a malignant variant like squamous cell carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, or melanoma. So I'll show you the slide. This is a very characteristic slide of dermoid cyst. You can see cut section of the dermoid cyst containing matted hair and cheesy material. ये जब आपके पास आ जाता है तो आपको फौरन diagnosis dermoid cyst का आपको लिखना है. This is your Osprey slide. Classical Osprey slide of the mature cystic teratoma or dermoid cyst. Mostly you have to write dermoid cyst, but if you even write mature cystic teratoma is the right answer, but you can also write dermoid cyst. We will not deduct your marks on that as well, because cheesy material and hair follicles are seen within the cystic area. So this is the microscopic appearance. You can see stratified squamous lining epithelium. You can see keratin material on the top, then lining epithelium. Then you can see these hair follicles which are present under the squamous epithelium. Here you can see cartilaginous area. So this is a benign cystic teratoma showing stratified squamous epithelium and cartilage. This is also your Osprey slide. Again, this is your Osprey slide showing keratin material, stratified squamous epithelium, and cartilaginous area, and few cyst formation are seen here and there as well. So mature cystic teratoma, all these slides are your Osprey slides. In rare instances, a benign teratoma is called a solid, and it is entirely composed of benign looking heterogeneous collection of solid tissues which are organized into 3 different layers. These have some histogenesis, but they lack prominent differentiation into ectodermal derivatives. On gross examination, these are difficult to differentiate from immature teratoma, but when you do the microscopic examination, all elements are mature, bones are mature, cartilage is mature, fibrous tissue is mature. Sometimes intestinal tissue can also be seen in these mature cystic teratomas. So mature cystic teratomas, I hope you understand, these are mature and mostly present as a dermoid cyst, but also contain tooth structure and cartilage or bone in their wall. This is the classical cut section of gross appearance of a mature cystic teratoma for your exam slide, and these 2 slides are also your exam slides, okay? I hope you understand that. So monodermal or specialized teratoma is a rare group of tumors which are only seen when there are stoma viri, which means thyroid tissue is present within the ovarian tissue, or only it is composed of a carcinoid tumor. Mostly they are unilateral. Stoma ovariae is composed of mature thyroid tissue, which may be functioning, and this functioning tissue can also lead to hyperthyroidism, increase in the thyroid hormones. You are going to do hyper and hyperthyroidism when we are going to do your thyroid lectures as well, okay? Ovarian carcinoid, which arises from the intestinal tissue in teratoma, may also be functional, especially large. More than 7 centimeter tumors can produce 5-hydroxytryptamine, which can lead to carcinoid syndrome. Stromal carcinoid is when both stroma ovariae, that is thyroid tissue, and carcinoid material is present as well. Okay. So this is the stroma ovariae. You can see these are all thyroid follicles lined by cuboidal epithelium present within the ovarian stroma. This is known as stroma ovariae. This is carcinoid tumor. These are gland-like structures, monotonous looking cells, and in between you can see fibrous tissue stroma. Ovarian incident carcinoid, H&E stain. Okay. Immature teratoma. Next is the immature teratoma in germ cell tumors. These are rare tumors which differ from benign in that the component tissue resembles embryonal and immature fetal tissue. So these are immature teratomas because they have embryonal type of tissue or immature fetal tissue. The tumors also produce large bulky masses. Smooth external surface can be seen, and they are mostly solid on sectioning. Here, sebaceous material, cartilage, bone, and calcification can be present with large areas of hemorrhage and necrosis. So, microscopically, we see varying amount of immature neuroepithelium, cartilage, bone, muscle, and other elements. Extraovarian spread depends upon the grade of tumor 1 to 3 based on the presence of neuroepithelium. These tumors grow rapidly and prognosis depends upon the grade of the tumor. So immature teratomas, they can be large masses which can be solid or they can be cystic. If they are cystic masses, again, they contain hair and sebaceous material in them with areas of calcification, bones and cartilage. Hemorrhage and necrosis are present in these areas as well because it is a malignant tumor. And microscopically, you can see immature cartilage, immature bony tissue, immature muscles, and immature neuroepithelium. Their malignancy depends upon the presence of immature neuroepithelium. The more the neuroepithelium is immature and it is present in many areas, the more the tumor is going to be malignant. So grading is done from grade 1 to 3 upon the presence of neuroepithelium in these immature teratomas. Okay. This is the photomicrograph of immature teratoma. This is all neuroepithelium which is immature, and you can see some fibrous tissue and some other elements which are immature lining epithelial cells. This is an immature teratoma of the ovary. Next germ cell tumor is dysgerminoma. Dysgerminoma, it accounts for 2% of all ovarian neoplasms and 50% of all ovarian malignant neoplasms of the ovary. These may occur in the childhood, but 75% occur in second to third decade of life. Yeah. अभी नहीं, मेरे 5 minutes आया हूँ मैं. Okay, sorry students. Dysgerminoma, it accounts for 2% of all ovarian neoplasms and 50% of all ovarian malignant germ cell tumors. They may occur in childhood, but 75% occur in second to third decade of life. And mostly the cause is gonoidal dysgenesis. When the gonoids are not produced normally, dysgerminomas can arise. 80 to 90% of these tumors are unilateral. They range in size from barely visible to huge masses that can fill up the abdomen. Cut-sex surface of these tumors is solid, yellow, white to gray pink in appearance. Microscopically, dysgerminoma composed of vesicular cells which have clear cytoplasm and they have centrally placed irregular nuclei. Dysgerminomas are malignant tumors which are confined to the ovary. They have excellent prognosis. This is the microscopic picture of a dysgerminoma. You can see the large cells having vesicular nuclei with prominent nuclei, and these cells have clear cytoplasm. In between, you can see fibrous tissue septa which contain lymphocytic infiltrate. Dysgerminomas and the counterpart of seminoma, which is seen in the testicular tumor. Next is the yolk sac tumor. Yolk sac tumor of the ovary is also a part of germ cell tumor. Yolk sac tumors are second most common tumor of the germ cell origin. Tumor cells produce alpha-fetoprotein. Alpha-fetoprotein is a tumor marker which is produced by other malignant tumor as well, like liver carcinoma. When we did hepatocellular carcinoma, I told you alpha-fetoprotein is produced from them as well. Microscopically, the characteristic histological feature is a glomerulus-like structure which is present, and it is composed of a central blood vessel lined by malignant epithelial cells. This is called a Schiller-Duvall body. This is known as Schiller-Duvall body. Characteristic histological feature is glomerulus-like structure composed of central blood vessel, as I've shown you, surrounded by tumor cells. Within the space, this is called a Schiller-Duvall body. This is a Schiller-Duvall body. In between, you can see a blood vessel lined by malignant epithelial cell, and this structure is known as Schiller-Duvall body. This is a characteristic microscopic feature of a yolk-sac tumor of the ovary. Okay. Patients are young when they present with this kind of tumor. They present with pelvic pain. With chemotherapy, 80% survival rate is present, independent to the stage of the tumor. So these tumors respond very well to the chemotherapy. Okay, this is a Schiller-Duvall body. Next is the choriocarcinoma. Choriocarcinoma is a tumor which arises from the chorionic tissue, which is also can be seen in the uterus as well. Choriocarcinoma occur in combination of germ cell tumor. Pure choriocarcinoma can be rare. Ovarian tumors are aggressive and they can metastasize to the lungs, liver, and bone. These tumors, choriocarcinoma, produce human chorionic gonadotrophin, or beta HCG is produced by them because these contain syncytial trophoblast cells, and syncytial cells produce HCG, which is also present in the case of normal pregnancy and is the basis for pregnancy test in the females. HCG levels. These are similar choriocarcinomas arise from the placenta as well, placental choriocarcinoma, and placental choriocarcinoma respond to chemotherapy, while ovarian choriocarcinoma do not respond to chemotherapy. This is the choriocarcinoma microscopic appearance. You can see cytotrophoblast, ribbon-like cells, and you can see large syncytial giant cells which produce HCG hormone. Next is the embryonal carcinoma and other germ cell tumor. Embryonal carcinoma is a highly malignant tumor of primitive embryonal elements. Cut surface is variegated with hemorrhage. Microscopically, cells grow in tubular or alveolar pattern, and they produce placental alkaline phosphatase. Other tumor can be polyembryoma or mixed germ cell tumor. In mixed germ cell tumor, you can see teratoma with embryonal carcinoma or teratoma with yolk sac tumor. Okay. This is the microscopic picture. Solid areas and glandular formation both can be seen in embryonal carcinoma. Next, we are going to do sex cord stromal tumors. These are sex cord stromal tumor arises from the stroma of the ovary. The most important of them is granulosa cell tumor. Granulosa cell tumor of the ovary, they are divided into adult granulosa cell and juvenile granulosa cell. The type is based on the age of the patient and morphology. These form 5% of all ovarian tumors. Mostly they occur in postmenopausal women. Morphologically, they vary from small masses to large solid and cystic areas. Hormonally, they are active tumors and they produce estrogen hormone. Microscopically, these tumors can grow in sheets and cords, and they form small gland-like structure. These gland-like structure contain pinkish eosinophilic material, and they are called Paul-Exner bodies. Paul-Exner bodies is the name given to them. Then there is prominent theca component in them as well. Prominent theca component is that they produce estrogen hormone. They are plump endothelial cells. Because of the production of estrogen hormones. So I have to finish the lecture here. Ovarian theca fibroma, fibrothecomas, you can read on your own. Then there are Sertoli cell tumors, then Sertoli-Leydig cell tumors. And this chart is very important from your examination point of view, your viva question. These are the hormones or tumor markers produced by ovarian tumor. Granulosa cell tumor produce estrogen hormone, thecomas produce estrogen hormone, Sertoli-Leydig cell produce androgens, choriocarcinoma produce beta HCG, alpha-fetoprotein is produced by yolk sac tumors, dysgerminoma produce placental alkaline phosphatase, embryonal PLP, epithelial tumors produce carcinoembryonic antigen, CA125. And ovarian cancers, you can see this staging on your own, and metastatic are Krukenberg tumor. Krukenberg tumor. Okay, you can read it on your own. If I have some time, I'm going to post this lecture on the LMS, and you can ask me questions in your WhatsApp group. Thank you. तुमने मेरे बहुत टाइम जाया किया है बेटा। मैंने नहीं किया। मुझे कभी ऊपर कभी नीचे। सर ने कहा था कि लेक्चर नीचे नहीं ऊपर। मैं तो नीचे ही था।